Have you noticed that the planes in Microsoft Flight Simulator just don't feel quite right? Especially the ones that come with the sim, or made by Asobo. They just kind of lack the weightiness to them, and this becomes really apparent when you go into another sim like XPlane. It just feels like my controls are a little bit too immediate and direct, and it's more pronounced in some planes than others. I notice it a lot in the Bonanza, but it kind of feels closer to a fighter jet than a GA plane. Well, I found a setting that makes a pretty big difference in terms of the weight and feel of the aircraft in the sim, and I'm going to show you what that is today. So what you're going to want to do is head into your control options and navigate to the hardware that you have attached. I'm going to start with my Honeycomb Alpha yoke here, and you're going to want to head into the sensitivity settings. And we're going to skip over sensitivity. We're actually going to look at the reactivity settings. So whereas sensitivity sort of deadens the feel of the input, reactivity adds a slight delay as you make an input. We're going to drop this down to about 40%. I suggest maybe starting at 60, somewhere between 60 and 40. And what this will do is you turn the control, as you give an input, it'll slowly introduce that input into the aircraft. And that sounds kind of counterintuitive at first, but once you try it, you'll notice the planes just have much more of an accurate feel to them, I think. It seems a little bit more realistic. It doesn't respond immediately to your inputs. It feels like it's actually, responding like a typical machine would. I do this for the yoke and definitely the rudder. The rudder's probably the worst offender, especially these rudder pedals. They're terrible. This one I may even drop below 40 as I experiment with it more. The problem is these rudder pedals are just super sensitive when they shouldn't be. It is really difficult to just give a small rudder input, as you're trying to coordinate a turn without the whole plane just yawing out of control. That's why I have such a wide dead zone in this. So try the reactivity settings. What you'll notice, I would start at about 60% to 40%. And what you'll notice is the planes just generally feel heavier. They feel like they have more weight to them, and that feels more realistic. They're a little less twitchy, and they feel much closer to the flight models that you have in XPlane. See that? See how it's... I already have my yoke turned all the way where it's at, and it's taking all this time to reach the input that I'm giving it, for the plane to reach the angle of the input that's being given. I think this just leads to a much more natural feel. Same with the rudder. We're not yawing out of control here as I give a little bit of rudder input. Maybe a little too much rudder input. Experiment with these a little bit. You could spend a lot of time going into the sensitivity curves like I have, adding dead zones and things like that, and then that does help. But this one setting, just the reactivity setting, I think makes the biggest difference in terms of how planes feel in Microsoft Flight Simulator.